Everybody thinks they know what they're after, but every time I walk into a C-suite of a small, medium-sized company, I can tell you they're not on the same page. So that's the biggest problem. Is the C-suite on the same page as to where they're trying to go and how they're going to get there?
Welcome to the new Talent Playbook Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit thenewtalentplaybookpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free workbook designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today's guest is Ron Karr, speaker, advisor, and creator of the Velocity Mindset. Ron has spent over 30 years helping leaders and sales teams across 6 continents mitigate risk, gain buy-in, and achieve results faster. His work has generated more than $1 billion in revenue for clients, and his latest book, Velocity Mindset, shows leaders how to turn their vision into action. Ron, welcome to the show, and let's dive right in.
Thank you, Rob.
So tell us a little bit about what is the Velocity Mindset and how can leaders use it to move quickly and get their teams aligned and motivated?
Well, I think you just mentioned the issue right in your definition. When you hear the word velocity, the first word that comes to your mind, Rob, is?
Speed.
Speed. That's what most people say when I ask that in the keynote. And if that's all we think it is, then unfortunately, we will not get velocity. What we may get is burnout. I'm talking about people that keep chasing that ever elusive thing that they're after, right? Yeah. And you have to find out why they can never get to it. The reason is because they don't have the right direction. So the physics definition of velocity is speed with direction. In this case, when I say direction, I'm talking about the end result, the outcome. For example, if we're in Newark Airport and you're coming down to Fort Lauderdale, let's say, to see me, and you ask the pilot where we're going, and they say, wherever the winds take us, would you stay on that plane? And the answer is probably no. What the pilots do, and what we're asking you to do in the velocity mindset, start with the end in sight. The end in sight is the goal that you want to accomplish. Then you work your way back, like a pilot does. They work their way back to see 3 waypoints, so they know if they're over those areas, they're on their way. And then they look for the potential obstacles, storms, winds, anything that can take away their velocity. And then at the end, they come up with a flight plan that's safe and fast. But you need both, not just fast. So what happens is, many times the thing that happens in the direction, everybody thinks they know what they're after. But every time I walk into a C-suite of a small, medium-sized company, I can tell you they're not on the same page. So that's the biggest problem. Is the C-suite on the same page as to where they're trying to go and how they're going to get there?
I want to just dive into that for a second because a number of thoughts are hitting my mind. So when you say that everybody's not on the same page, they have a goal in mind, where do you see that they start to diverge and they're not on the same page? Because they have their goals, right?
I'm talking about the goal of the organization where they're not on the same page.
Yeah.
You see, what happens a lot is the executive team, the CEO will come in and say, here's what we're doing, this is what I want. And they say, great. And they go, okay, here's what we need to do. But the question is, are they buying into it? Do they believe in it? Are they on the same page? And many times they're not. Because they see different issues that maybe the CEO doesn't see. They didn't have a chance to talk about it. And invariably, all my work, when I'm brought in after a keynote to help a company grow, it always starts with, number one, getting the C-suite on the same page.
Gotcha. Okay. And just to be clear here, that goal, is that the CEO, the business owner in a lot of these businesses, is it for them to dictate it? Do you build consensus, or is consensus the enemy? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, ideally today, you would want consensus because the market tells us people won't stay there if they don't like it, if they don't believe in it, so they're going to leave. So you might as well get consensus. But if you're not getting to a decision with a consensus, then the CEO's got to jump in and help them identify a direction. And of course, he wants the direction they identify to be along where he wants to go or she wants to go. Right. Now, a mistake that people make when they feel they have the direction is they don't think big enough. because they let the past history dictate what they think is possible.
Right.
So, for example, one of my great success stories was keynoting a national sales meeting for a multinational chemical manufacturer out of Germany. There are different divisions in the States. And after that talk, the VP of the mining division in Tucson came up to me. And he started sharing with me the story that they were always number one in the copper mine industry. And they spent 20 years developing a new reagent. It finally just came out. And it came out at the perfect time in the 80s because it saved a lot of copper mines from going bankrupt. Problem is, when you come out with something that's differentiating, your competitors try to reinvent. Not as good as yours, but they come out with something similar and they try to beat you on price.
Yeah.
So that was happening. So when they got a hold of me that night, they had a meeting the following week with the biggest copper mining company in the world, one of their biggest customers, but they only had 25% of their demand, even though they had 65% of the world demand. So they asked me to fly out and get them ready for the meeting. We're in the conference room. The first question I asked them is, what do you want from my intervention?
Right.
And the answer was, oh, we want to win the bid. Now, you see, in that industry, procurement was always the same. Bid for 3 years, lowest price. That was it. And I looked at them and I said, well, that answer kind of fell flat. I mean, no, what's your passion? What do you really want?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they got energized and said, why do we have to bid? We saved this industry. I said, so what do you want? We want a negotiated agreement. How long? 10 years, the life of the patents. How much? You have 25% of the demand. 75%. And then here came the kicker. I said, let me repeat what you just said. You don't want a bid. You want a 10-year negotiated deal for a fair price for 75% of the demand. And my answer to you is you can do that, but only if you understand that it takes a different set of actions to get to that result than it does to win the bid. So A, people don't think big enough because they let the past dictate. And then the other side of it, they don't look to see whether or not their actions are even strong enough to get to where they want to be.
Right.
Those are two big areas where people make mistakes in identifying their direction.
Yeah. I have personally found that going bigger, sometimes it's not more difficult. It's actually sometimes even easier than
Economies of scale could be better. There could be many reasons why big is better than small.
Yeah, but as you said, it requires different thinking. So that's a good segue. Maybe the CEO is thinking bigger, but the rest of the team's not necessarily on board. What do you see in terms of how do you eliminate that resistance? How do you get the team excited about this as a business owner, about being bolder and thinking bigger?
Where does resistance come from? It comes from fear. Fear that we don't know how to do it, fear that we may not be able to do it, fear that it may be wrong, fear that it may not work the way we expect it to be, fear that I will be blamed for it if it doesn't work. So there's a lot of fear involved, and that's where resistance comes from. Let me go back for 1 second. What drives our actions? One word, feelings. As a speaker, when I speak at a keynote, the only thing I'm concerned is what is the feeling of the audience when I start, and did I improve that feeling when I end it? That's my job. So what feelings do I need them to have to take the same actions?
Right.
And if they have fear is a feeling, right? That's immediately causing drag in their velocity because they immediately start to slow down or they just don't do it at all.
Right.
So as a leader, how can you eliminate that? You got to have the right conversations in some of these meetings. They're having the wrong conversations. Many times they're having a CYA conversation, cover your ass, under the costume of trying to solve a problem. But it's not leading to the engagement that you need in that meeting. For example, we know of a software company that was late in coming out with a new product years ago, and it cost them $1 million a month being late.
Right.
And a friend of mine, a colleague, went into that meeting, and he saw that the whole conversation was, why are we late? In other words, the leader immediately put the team at risk in saying they got to either blame somebody else or blame themselves.
Right.
And no one wants to have that conversation. It's not productive, and It just saps the energy out of the room. Instead, we changed the paradigm of the conversation. It's not about being late. It's about where do you want to be? The direction. If you say on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 is we got there. Where are we now? We're at a 6. I don't care what the number is. Give it to me. 6, fine. That's where you want to be. Where are we now? 2. Okay. So the question just becomes simple. What do we have to do to go from a 2 to a 6?
Right.
That's when people get creative. That's when it unleashes. But if there's a blame game involved in that conversation, you've just sabotaged that conversation.
Yeah.
You go velocity.
That makes a lot of sense. This episode is brought to you by Work Better Now, helping small and mid-sized businesses build world-class teams with remote talent from Latin America. Are you ready to rethink how you hire and retain top talent? Then you need to get your hands on my upcoming book, The New Talent Playbook, the ultimate guide to building your dream team. When you sign up for this book launch updates, you'll also get a free copy of the Culture Strength Scorecard, a tool that will immediately help you diagnose your team's health. This is your new playbook for winning the war for talent and scaling with total confidence. Get your free scorecard and be the first to get the book at thenewtalentplaybook.com. I want to jump to another topic that a lot of business owners are talking about today, which is attracting and retaining talent. It seems to be getting harder. What have you seen in the connection between having a clear vision and a powerful, bold vision? And how does that impact, or how can that impact your ability to attract as well as retain really top talent?
First of all, top talent want to know a couple of things. Do you have a direction of where you're going? And is it the direction that I want to buy into? That's number one. And number two, do they have the resources that I need to be successful?
Right.
And then number three, most important to the talent, what's my path forward in my career? Problem with small businesses, they don't really have path forwards, for a lot of jobs.
Yep.
Part of the reason is because they don't even take the time to do it because they're just struggling to survive day by day.
Right.
But you got to understand what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? You need the top talent in there in order to turn your fortunes around. So you better start with what does the top talent need and do I have it? And if not, how do I have it in place so this becomes one of the companies they want to work for?
So the vision is just one of the pieces of the puzzle. It's going to maybe attract people into having the conversation, but you got to have, and I strongly believe this, it's going to be mentioned in my book that's coming out. You need to have development plans for everybody in the organization. There needs to be a process around that so that everybody understands where the opportunities are. Otherwise, if you want top talent, they're obviously interested in growth. And if you don't offer that, you can have the best vision in the world.
You also need to match the opportunities to individuals' passions.
Yeah.
And let me tell you why passion is so important. I'm on retainer for this company for 13 years. We helped them grow from 8 million to now they're pushing 50 and they're going to be pushing 70 pretty soon. I was in the CEO's office one day. Production manager comes in, really pissed off, and he starts cursing. He goes, "God damn, guy." I said, "What's wrong?" "He's on his damn cell phone. He's late and he's causing everybody else to be late." I said, "Oh, what'd you do?" "I told him to get off the goddamn cell phone." "What did he do?" "He said everybody else is on a cell phone." I said, "What did you do?" I said, "I just looked at him and walked away." I said, "Great, how did that serve you?" I said, "Let's do the same conversation. You be him, I'll be you. And I just want you to tell me how this conversation serves you." And I just repeated exactly what he said. He said, "Stop." I wouldn't even listen to myself. I said, "Right, because you're negotiating on the wrong thing." Right? What's the guy's passion? What does he want to achieve? He wants to be a master welder. What do you need? Quality and timeliness. How is his quality? Perfect. That's why we love him. How is his timeliness? Well, he's late. This job is causing everybody else to be late. Change the conversation. Go out there and say, "Look, you want to be a master welder, right? You're on your way. You're taking the 2-year program. You know you need quality. You're perfect. That's why we love you. The only thing is we're a little bit late in this one job. How do we get you back on time so you stay on that course to become the master welder?" You know what happened, Rob? Immediately, that guy forgot about the cell phone. He starts volunteering ideas on how he can get there. And within 2 hours, they got caught up on time.
Amazing.
So for the leaders, are you negotiating and coaching on the right issues?
Right.
That's the issue.
Yeah. The other thing I heard in there is rather than focus on the weakness, why don't you focus on the positive and the opportunity
of where they want to go, because that's what they're going to be working for.
Yeah.
And it's different for everybody, by the way.
Of course. Ron, A term that I like to use a lot is owner's mentality. Ideally, you want a company full of people who have an owner's mentality. What practical steps can a leader take? And whether it starts at hiring or all the way through someone's tenure at your company, how do you get people to have an owner's mentality?
I'm going to maybe change your thinking on that a little bit, because I believe the same thing from my first 30 years of my career.
Right.
And as I got through it, I said, is it really the same thing? And the answer is no. Because an owner's mentality is based on investment, return on investment, and making sure the whole thing works. Now, what we confuse with that mentality is the concept of accountability. They have a high level of accountability because they have a lot to lose. Whereas employees who are following, even line managers, they don't have as much accountability or as much to lose. And that's where the disconnect is. It's in the accountability issue. So when I teach leaders and CEOs, like a CEO would say, how do I make my people more accountable to the organization? And I said, you don't. There is no such thing as accountability in the organization. Why should I be accountable to this place? There's accountability to myself. All right? Meaning, if I make a promise, how well do I keep it? And if I don't, I'm not even being accountable to myself. So the question you have to ask yourself is, how do you create a culture where people not only give their word, but back it up and do what they say they're going to do? And you do that by rewarding them, not by necessarily penalizing people. Again, you reward the behaviors that you want. But that's what accountability is. And you also have to prove to people that it's safe to be accountable. Yes, there might be some negative consequences that I may have cost the company some money, but if I raise my hand and say, yeah, I could have done that differently, well, what are you going to do? You're going to shoot the person, or you're going to reward them saying, great, what did you learn from that? Because when you look at success, Rob, and you know this, all success is made up of a lot of failures.
That's right.
So there's good failure and bad failure. I want people to have good failure. Good failure is when you learn from it. If you learn from it, I want you failing every day if you work with me. Because it means you're trying things and you're doing it, but I know you won't be making the same mistake again.
That's a great point. So just to summarize for leaders, and by the way, when I speak about owner's mentality, it's not to actually be an owner, because we are somewhere between 1% and 5% of the population who will see risk differently. It's, as my buddy Jack Daly says, you'll figure it out. You will find a way to get this thing done and get it done right, just as I would as the business owner. But the practical steps are setting that culture up where you're encouraging people to
be accountable. But there's one more step that I did not say that I have to stay here.
Yeah.
How do you set that culture?
Yeah.
You do the behavior yourself first. Meaning,
lead by example.
When something goes wrong, what's the first thing you do? Blame somebody? Or do, as I suggest, which is ask yourself, what could I have done differently next time?
Yeah. Yeah.
If they see yourself doing that and asking yourself that question, they will start asking themselves that question themselves.
Yeah. Ron, I want to put all of this together for the audience. So can you share a specific example where a leader transformed their team's performance or culture, or both probably, using the velocity mindset principles that you've been talking about?
Yes. I'm going to have to say it in generic terms because I'm still involved.
Company size, industry, that'll be great.
Right. Well, manufacturer in welding, fabrication for military. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Anyway, the CEO, I met him 14 years ago at YPO. Really smart guy, intelligent. One of the things we always want in CEOs is, do you have futuristic thinking? And he had great futuristic thinking. Problem was in his execution. Problem is that he tells people figure it out, they do it, then he wouldn't like it, then they get upset. Why didn't you tell us how to do it? So there was a problem in execution in the company. They were stuck at a low revenue number. There were two things that I had to convince him to do that changed the fortunes. And if he didn't do them, I don't believe they would be where they are today. So in other words, he really made two hard decisions as a leader, but he made the best decisions for the company and for himself. First decision, get out of the commercial market and go into the military. The reason the military is in his backyard, it's suited for what he does, custom work, and commercial is changing. They're now doing auctions. It doesn't support custom work. Your legacy accounts no longer are your future accounts. It took a while to get that mindset wrapped And within 2 years, which I think was a little long for him, he made the decision. And once he did that, sales started flying off the charts. Second thing, a few years after that, I finally said to him, I think you need to fire yourself as a CEO. And he looked at me and he said, why? I said, you're a smart dude. I really love you. But what is your goal? What is your end game? If you're really looking to maximize the revenue and the deal or whatever you're trying to do when you exit and you want the profit for the people because you care about them, then are they really doing the best? And are you doing the best you can do under this leadership, or could it be done? You have to agree the execution is not your forte. And if you can get a good COO in here who can execute, maybe become your CEO, what could happen? He did it. Didn't work the first time. The second person we got in there, now he's got the CEO he trusts, and he actually removed himself from the company. Company's doing 3 times the size it was doing. He's got a better lifestyle. He's happy. His family's happy. He's also protected his family for the future. The question is, as a leader, are you yourself making the hard decisions you have to make? Because if you're not, why would anybody else do them in your organization?
That's a very powerful message. And what struck in my mind, in addition to what you said, is you started off by saying this guy was amazingly bright and amazingly talented. And number one, he came and sought help. He hired you. And then he made that decision. I kind of liken that to, you can be rich or you can be king. And he decided he wanted to be rich. And when I say rich, I don't mean monetarily. You said he's a happier guy as well.
Yeah. In that decision, I got to add some context,
Yeah.
Okay? He told me some years later, when I decided to hire you, I knew it was going to be a long-term annuity for you. Because I knew that I needed somebody with me because I wasn't doing it on my own.
Yeah.
So the point that I'm making is a lot of people who hire consultants say, let me do it for a day, a week. Let's see if they have a magic pill, if it's fast enough. If you really trust the person, you got to make sure you're there for the trip. Now, if it doesn't work after a while, of course, leave. But he went in it for the long term.
Right.
And that was a key distinction.
Yeah, he wasn't looking for a quick fix because those things really just don't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ron, thanks so much for sharing all of this with me and with our audience. Where can people find out more about you and the Velocity Mindset?
Sure. So they can get the Velocity Mindset on Amazon. It's the best place to get it. And if they want to go to ronkarr.com, that's spelled RONKARR.com, no C. And they can see the various things that we do, the services. And most importantly, they can sign up for our free weekly videos on the Velocity Mindset.
Very cool. Ron, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. The New Talent Playbook Podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the workbook for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at the New Talent Playbook Podcast or visit thenewtalentplaybookpodcast.com.